Ethan had always believed help would arrive eventually. Someone would notice, someone would call back, someone would knock on the door when things got too quiet inside his head. That night, he sat alone on the edge of his bed, phone resting face up in his palm. No notifications, no missed calls, just the faint glow of a screen that felt colder than the room around him. He refreshed it again, knowing it wouldn't change, but hoping it would. He thought about the times he'd told himself, just hold on a little longer, about the promises he made to survive until someone stepped in. Family was busy, friends were distant. Everyone had their own lives, their own storms, and somehow his pain never seemed urgent enough. The silence wasn't loud. That's what hurt most. It didn't scream or demand attention. It simply existed, patient, heavy, undeniable. Ethan leaned back and stared at the ceiling, feeling something crack open in his chest. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. A truth he had avoided for years finally surfaced. Nobody was coming. The thought settled slowly, like dust after a collapse, and as it did, his breath caught, not because it was hopeless, but because he had no idea what came next. Once the truth settled, it didn't leave quietly. It followed Ethan into the next morning, into the shower where the water ran too hot, into the mirror he avoided for as long as he could. When he finally looked, he didn't recognize the man staring back. The eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep, but from years of expecting others to carry what he refused to hold himself. Memories surfaced without permission, calls he never returned, chances he postponed, moments when people had shown up, but he was too distracted by his own chaos to meet them halfway. He'd mistaken dependence for connection, silence for abandonment. A familiar voice inside him whispered, "Maybe this is your fault." The thought hurt more than loneliness ever did. He slid down to the bathroom floor, back against the cold tiles, breathing unevenly. He realized how often he had waited for rescue instead of learning how to stand, how he blamed absence without asking what he'd given. For the first time, Ethan didn't just feel abandoned, he felt exposed. And in that raw moment, a darker question crept in, quiet but ruthless. If no one came, was it because he wasn't worth saving? The days blurred after that. Ethan stopped reaching out, not dramatically, not out of pride, but out of exhaustion. Hope had become heavy. Expectation hurt too much to carry. He moved through the world on autopilot. Work, silence, sleep, repeat. At night, the loneliness deepened, but something else appeared beneath it. Stillness. No more waiting, no more rehearsing conversations that would never happen. Just the quiet truth of being alone with himself. It was terrifying and strangely honest. One evening, sitting on the floor of his dark apartment, Ethan laughed softly. Not because anything was funny, but because he realized how much energy he'd spent waiting for someone to arrive and change everything. How powerless that waiting had made him feel. The room didn't respond. The world didn't shift. But a thought surfaced, fragile and unfamiliar. If nobody is coming, then nobody is stopping me either. The idea scared him more than despair ever had. Responsibility felt heavier than loneliness. Yet, buried beneath the fear was something else, small, stubborn, and alive. What if rock bottom wasn't the end? What if it was the first place where he finally stood on his own? Change didn't come with motivation or dramatic music. It came quietly, through discipline, through discomfort, through choosing effort on days Ethan felt nothing at all. He started small, making his bed, taking walks without headphones, sitting with his thoughts instead of running from them. Each action felt pointless at first, almost insulting, but he kept going. Not because he believed in himself, but because he had no one else to rely on. So mornings the old ache returned, the desire for someone to notice his progress, to say, "I'm proud of you." But instead of stopping, Ethan learned to let the ache exist without obeying it. He began to understand something painful yet freeing. Independence wasn't cold, it was honest. Slowly, his posture changed, his voice steadied, his days gained structure, not perfection, just intention. One night, as he locked his apartment door after a long day, Ethan paused. For the first time in years, he didn't feel empty walking into silence. He felt capable. Not rescued, not healed, but stronger. And the realization hit him gently, like dawn after a long night. He hadn't survived because someone saved him. He survived because he stayed. Ethan no longer waits by the door, literally or emotionally. He still values people, still believes in connection, but he no longer builds his worth on someone else's arrival. He learned that loneliness doesn't disappear when others show up. It fades when you stop abandoning yourself. The world didn't suddenly become kinder. Life still disappoints. People still leave. Silence still visits. But it no longer defines him. Now, when things fall apart, Ethan doesn't ask who will save him. He asks what he can do next. He stands in the mess without shame. He chooses progress over pity. On the anniversary of that night, the night he accepted the truth, he sat alone again. Same room, same quiet, but everything felt different. He smiled, not because the pain never existed, but because it no longer owned him. The day he accepted that nobody was coming was the day he stopped waiting. The day he stopped waiting was the day he began moving, and the day he began moving was the day he finally arrived for himself.